Three engineers were riding in a car, went down a hill, and crashed. The mechanical engineer said, "It must be the brakes. Let me check them out." The electrical engineer said, "I think it was something in the electrical system. Let me check it out." The software engineer said, "Let's push it back up the hill and run it again." A programmer's wife asks him, "Would you go to the shop and pick up a loaf of bread? And if they have eggs, get a dozen." The programmer goes to the store and returns home with 12 loaves of bread. "They had eggs," he explained. Engineers like to solve problems, but if there are no problems handily available, they will create their own. The optimist says, "The glass is half full." The pessimist says, "The glass is half empty." The engineer says, "The glass is twice as big as it needs to be." An engineer, a physicist and a statistician are attempting to hit a target 400 feet away with a cannon. The physicist says, "This is easy." He does the calculations and fires, but falls 100 feet short. The engineer tells him he forgot to factor in imperfections and error. He calculates and overshoots by 100 feet. The statistician then declares, "We hit it." How many software engineers does it take to change a light bulb? None. That's a hardware issue. Looking for a boyfriend in engineering? The odds are good, but the goods are odd. Three engineering students were gathered together to discuss the possible designers of the human body. One said, "It was a mechanical engineer. Just look at all the joints." Another said, "No, it was an electrical engineer. The nervous system has many thousands of electrical connections." The last said, "Actually it was a civil engineer. Who else would run a toxic waste pipeline through a recreational area? How do you get an engineer to do something you want them to do? Tell them it's impossible." Engineer number 1, "I bet you can't name two structures that can hold water." Engineer number 2, "Well, damn. When I wrote this code, only me and God knew how it works. Now only God knows." An old engineer retires. A year or so later, the firm calls him up. They are having a technical issue with a machine he designed. No one else in the company can figure out what's wrong, and they want him to help. He agrees and comes in. He walks up to the machine, opens a panel, and stares into the workings. After a while, he pulls a piece of chalk out of his pocket and scribes an X on one particular component. He says, "There's your problem," and leaves. Sure enough, the firm replaces that part, and everything is working fine. A few days later, the firm receives a bill from the retired engineer for $100,000. They call him, asking why the bill is so outrageous. He replies, itemizing the bill, "It's $1 for chalk and $99,999 for knowing where to put it. There are 10 types of people in this world, those who understand binary and those who don't. How do you drive an engineer insane? Make them watch as you fold up a road map the wrong way." What is the definition of an engineer? Someone who solves a problem you didn't know you had in a way you don't understand. You know, I hate engineer students sometimes. For example, I hate it when engineer students call themselves engineers, like you don't hear med students calling themselves doctors or art students calling themselves unemployed. Conventional wisdom: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Mechanical engineer: if it ain't broke, consider adding more features. The engineer installed a motor too powerful in the moving stairway. It escalated very quickly. You might be an engineer if you've used coat hangers and duct tape for something other than hanging coats and taping ducts. What's the difference between mechanical engineers and civil engineers? Mechanical engineers build weapons. Civil engineers build targets. Proof: Postulate 1, knowledge is power. Postulate 2, time is money. As every engineer knows, power equals work time. And since knowledge equals power and time equals money, it is therefore true that knowledge equals work money. Solving for money, we get money equals work knowledge. Thus, as knowledge approaches zero, money approaches infinity, regardless of the amount of work done. What's the difference between an introverted and an extroverted engineer? An introverted engineer looks at his shoes when he's talking to you. An extroverted engineer looks at your shoes when he's talking to you. Me: you're an engineer. Why are you so dumb about technology? Spouse: I just design it, I don't use it. An engineer is a person who measures with a micrometer, marks it with a crayon, and cuts it with an axe. You might be an engineer if you destroy things just to see how they work. An engineer walks into a pub and demands, "Give me a beer before the problems start." The bartender hands out another beer, but is visibly concerned as the engineer seems in some sort of pain. As the engineer finished his sixth beer, the bartender asks, "When are you going to start paying for these beers?" The engineer exclaims, "Now the problems start." A graduate with a science degree asks, "Why does it work?" A graduate with an engineering degree asks, "How does it work?" A graduate with an accounting degree asks, "How much will it cost?" A graduate with a liberal arts degree asks, "Would you like fries with that?" Wind turbine 1? What kind of music do you like? Wind turbine 2? I'm a big metal fan. The programmer got stuck in the shower because the instructions on the shampoo bottle said, lather, rinse, repeat. 2 antennas got married. The wedding was lousy, but the reception was outstanding. I can't believe they gave that engineer who wrecked the train in New York the electric chair. And he survived it. I guess he just wasn't a very good conductor. So an electrical engineer built a house entirely out of resistors. The welcome mat said "Om sweet Om." 2 engineering students bumped into each other at school, and one noticed the other's new bike. He asked, "Where did you get such a wonderful bike?" The other student replied that a blonde rode up to him, threw her bike on the ground, took off all her clothes, threw them on the ground and said, "Take whatever you'd like to have." The first student says, "Good call, I'll bet her clothes wouldn't have fit either of us." Overheard in a bar, I wonder if the person who invented the drawing board got it right first time. How many nuclear engineers does it take to change a light bulb? 7. 1 to install the new bulb and 6 to figure out what to do with the old one for the next 10,000 years. What did the electrical engineer say when he got shocked? That hurts. My calculator stopped working midway through my engineering exam. I can't count on it anymore. You might be an engineer if you think that when people around you yawn, it's because they didn't get enough sleep. Professor, what's a hydraulic ram used for? It's where you get steel wool. Subscribe for daily update.